Welcome to our Professional Learning Day this Monday, May 31st. So hopefully you have seen the agenda. I sent it out last week, and it's going to be a wonderful day of learning for all of us, and a pretty special day of learning because we're going to hear from students throughout the day. I said morning, didn't I? The whole day is a day of learning. Although the students have scheduled a series of keynotes throughout the day, as you can see on the agenda, on the slide I'm sharing. As I stated at the very top of the agenda, and as I shared with principals and vice principals, I know that in this time of pandemic, what is top of mind, what is weighing on your hearts, depends on the school you're in and your situation. So whatever you need to do to find the time to also talk about things that are weighing on your hearts, weighing on your minds, do take that time. So before I share some opening remarks, and before we hear from our first keynote presenters, Mariah from Collège Jeanne Sauvé, Heaven from Glen Lawn Collegiate, and Marin from Nelson McIntyre Collegiate, on the topic of Indigenous education, we're going to hear from Wanbdi, one of our grandparents, on this day where in LRSD and across Manitoba and across Canada, we are mourning the loss of 215 children in a residential school, where we've recently uncovered the tragic truth of our history in Canada, and so before I pass it on to Wanbdi, I'm hoping that most of you, if not all of you, are aware of a recent publication celebrating Indigenous culture in community in our school division. This is the cover of this is the front cover of the publication. And the reason for the publication was to highlight the many things we are doing to on our journey of truth and reconciliation. And one important group of people at the heart of our community is our Indigenous Council of Grandmothers and Grandfathers. And Wanbdi is right in the middle there. And so I'm going to pass it on to Wanbdi to bring his thoughts and a song this morning.
Thank you. Good morning to everybody. Hope you have a good, in fact, I want you to have a good day today, despite all the things that are going on today. Greater and our ancestors are the main heart, the main theme, the main way of us living on this earth. Mother Earth also plays a major role. In fact, they work together. Creator, our ancestors, and Mother Earth and Grandmother Earth. And it kind of goes like this. Father, Great Holy, Mother Earth, Grandfather, Grandmother Earth. And all of these four entities, these four spirits provide everything that we need to carry on with these human being laws, these natural laws, and these sacred laws. We activate these teachings, these learnings, these practicings, these understandings of these sacred instructions using our heart, our mind, our body, and our spirit. And so today especially is another day about recognizing that Creator is the one that sets everything when we're here on this earth, when we are put on this earth, or when it's time for us to go back where we came from. That's Creator's work. And the work is carried out by our ancestors. And so here we are, another day, whatever it takes, whatever is going on today, that we would have good memories. If we're planning to look back especially, that we would have good memories. Good memories because Creator is the one that has given us these laws, and we recognize that these laws are holy. And these laws, the holy laws, the natural laws, the human being laws, belong to everybody on this planet. So whatever it is that we wanted to do today, one of my priorities would be to provide a memorial ceremony, starting with making prayers this morning at 5 o'clock. Starting with remembering yesterday, all day yesterday, making memories, and today showing support, visibly showing support, and to offer help as much as I can, to offer help. Every single one of us here, we have Creator looks after you. There's many different ways Creator looks after you. Creator teaches us things, Creator shows us things, Creator gives us things, Creator tells us things. And our job here on this earth is to be in good shape, preparing to receive these sacred instructions, to recognize these answers that you are waiting for through these prayers that you made, to continue to treat yourself good, heart, mind, body, and spirit, to share this goodness with as much people as you can. Besides the everyday things that we go through, a child hurting her knees when she fell off her bike, people making tears because they lost their loved ones and remembering them. Any thing that Creator puts in front of us, we are promising that we would do something. Today, a memory came back. And I'm not sure, I don't, this came up pretty quickly, being asked to sing a memorial song. And I will. This song is about us to energize yourself, because as we look around, we see that there are people that need this help and support, so that we would need to energize ourselves to help the ones who are lagging behind, as it were. And really, that's really the way it is. When I look behind, I see lots of people behind me. When I look in the front, I see lots of people ahead of me. But I'm there, I'm walking, trying to do the best I can. That's all any of us can do. And so that's what this song is all about. Creator makes good instructions for us on how we could live on this earth. Living in a regular way means just that. And my grandfather had told me, we are not looking for the truth. We are just wanting to continue enhancing the truth because that's the way it is. When our people make prayers, and when they finish making prayers, they say, in the name of your Son, Jesus Christ, this is the way things are. Today, when we make prayers, our people say, in the name of your daughter, Tesawi, White Buffalo Calf Woman, this is the way it is. That's teaching us to pray from our heart. And the feelings that we have is what we start with every single day. Remember that. I asked for a song this morning when I found out that I've been asked to sing a memorial song. It's a combination of asking people to energize yourself, because Creator has given us lots of work to do and that people need our help. We continually say that our people still have a great contribution to make for people who ask. I would ask you now to close your eyes, sit back, relax, think of nothing except listening to this song. This helping song, the future of the helping song, is like this. Jakar ayate mne edicheya akeshne wachende ya pe ay way Lakarayate Mreyade Cheyapa O Krishna Wachinde Yape Way Thank you. I encourage you today that you would have a good day and think about your heart, mind, body, and spirit, how you can activate those things today in that order, and continue to look towards your family and your relatives and your friends. And the last encouragement that I want to say is, go somewhere. An example today would be the Parliament buildings, where you can show visible support to a memorial that's being carried out right now. Go over there and you will find your heart over there. And then you can start with things like that. Thank you for inviting me to be part of your learning here. Remember that land-based learning is a holistic learning. And it's not only just going out in a bush and learning about things, it's learning about you on the inside of you, and taking that, whatever you find, and taking it out to a regular place, which is away from all the pollution and the noise, going into the forest and really thinking about, what are you doing here? What do you need to do here in this bush? And try not to bring the city with you when you go into this bush, and do the regular things that is required. That way, the connection will be whole, will be complete. And you can live like that. It's really, really important. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Wanbdi. Thank you, Wanbdi. Thanks for your generosity and your accepting to be a part of today. It was late yesterday when we reached out, and thank you for bringing your song. I'm going to share a few words before I pass it on to three students to speak to us about what they talked about with their peers earlier in May. A again, it's an opportunity for me also to check in with everyone that the efforts we make here to communicate with the community we serve are serving their intended purpose, that they're getting out to people, that people find the information of value. I'm always open to feedback. If the information and the way it's shared isn't of value, I need to hear that and I need to adjust. So as I said at the start of the morning, I attempted to share with everyone. I shared in a very direct way with principals and vice principals my hope for today and how it's connected to the event on May 5th and the conversations I had leading to that day with the students about finding a way to pause in the midst of the pandemic, in the midst of a crisis, to actually reflect upon our lived experience in this moment of crisis, in this pandemic, and ask the question, what am I learning? What am I learning as an individual about myself, and what am I learning about what I'm a part of here in a school system, and what am I learning about others and the community I'm a part of? And because we're expending tremendous amounts of energy to navigate this pandemic, we're learning a great deal. But for those lessons to stick and to be a part of imagining a future beyond the pandemic, we need to reflect and we need to talk with each other and we need to take stock of all of that and then make some commitments about what we've learned and what we want to see stick. So I was so thrilled to see the students agree to bringing together their peers to talk, and we're going to hear from them today. Hear about what they said to each other on that day. Recently, I've been reading a book. The title of the book is Thrive: The Purpose of Schools in a Changing World. It's a 2021 publication. I believe it was published in February, but I also think it's a second edition. It's I believe the authors had written a book earlier that I wasn't aware of and have incorporated the lessons of the pandemic. It's an interesting book. It's written by a couple of authors from the United Kingdom and from the UK, and it really does connect in some very important ways to our multi-year strategic plan. I mean, essentially the themes are the same. And the authors are arguing that we really do need to think of a public education system that is really connected to a new understanding of the world we live in and the future we face. And well, and like Wanbdi said, it has to be a holistic journey. The ways we've compartmentalized learning for far too long aren't working. And the authors, I think, make a strong case for, well, first of all, a reimagining of what we understand to be what society needs, what the world needs, a reimagining of what we mean by an economy and what we mean by a civil society. And it is this notion of thriving and flourishing. We used two words when we conceptualized multi-year strategic plan and reimagined our motto, and so again, I've shared this a few times over the course of the last few months, is how our multi-year strategic plan has really served as a North Star to us here at the board office. And I'm hoping it is also that for all of you in LRSD. And so this day also is hopefully a day where you renew with the multi-year strategic plan, and you renew with our motto and our values and our vision and mission. Knowing, as I'm sharing this morning, that it's a very forward-thinking, very modern, very contemporary, very necessary vision of the world and of public education in that world. And it's, as Wanbdi said, it's a holistic understanding about how it all works. That you can't compartmentalize learning, and you can't just focus on scores or the purpose of learning being a job. That learning and the purposes of public education are far more significant and far deeper, and require a holistic and very connected approach to it all. And I truly do believe that our multi-year strategic plan offers that, and it offers an alternative view of the discourse, the narrative right now being proposed with respect to reform in public education in Manitoba. But ultimately, this multi-year strategic plan that is nothing but words on paper, and hopefully words that are inspiring and dream-like aspirations, just will remain that, just wishful thinking. If they're actually not taken to, if they're not actually tied to some action towards achieving these dreams. And so hopefully our multi-year strategic plan isn't just window dressing. It's it really does lead to concrete action, and action where we can demonstrate to ourselves, the community we serve, and the world we're a part of, that there's evidence of that action having taken place. And so that's also my hope for today, is that your conversations today will lead to action. So on that note, I'm going to pass it on to our first keynotes. But before I do that, I'm also just going to go back to our learning circle communication, and the very top message here on the screen. We've been working at learning about who we are, and an important way we learn about who we are is to ask that very question: who are we with respect to identity, with respect to racialized identity, ethnocultural identity? And so we've set on a journey, it's been a long time coming, where we're asking staff in LRSD to identify, to share how they identify as Indigenous, as BIPOC. We're asking everyone to identify the languages they speak, the ethnocultural identities that make up who they are. We've had a few hundred respond to the survey. I hope today can be an opportunity for you also to engage with that survey if you haven't, and respond. Okay, so on that note, that final little ask of me, I'm going to pass it on to 3 students. And yes, we're extending, we're going over time. It's 9:31. The kids are going to take the time they need, and that's going to be okay. We've gotten very good at adapting to circumstance. And so I'm going to stop talking now.
The schools of Louisville School Division, along with the people of this division, acknowledge that the land on which we gather is Treaty 1 territory. This is the traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Innuwak, Dakota, and the homeland of the Métis. With this acknowledgement, we are acknowledging the mistakes of the past and present of the Canadian government, and we are demonstrating the efforts of the restoration of a relationship between Indigenous and non-Indigenous people.
Before we begin, I would like to introduce ourselves. My name's Heben and I'm grade 11 student at Glenlawn, and I'm honored to be accompanied by Mariah in grade 11 who goes to CGS, and last but not least, Marin, who's in grade 10 and goes to Nelson Mac.
On May 5th, 2021, a variety of students from 9 to 12 put together a youth summit to bring students from all over the division from grades 5 to 12 to receive feedback on their education and to reimagine education in a post-pandemic world. Our committee broke this into 4 topics: mental wellness and building back community, land-based learning and Indigenous education, inequality and exclusion, and finally, lessons learned in the pandemic. To provide a brief overview, we are going to now show you the video that summarizes what the summit looked like.
I'm enjoying that we're talking about our mental health and the ways to work on it and things that affect it, and that we're actually talking about things instead of just hiding them down. It's a good thing to share. It's just a different ability than most people.
Take care of each other. That's the most important thing in this whole thing. And beyond the horizon, everything is beyond the horizon. Your horizon is right here, right now. Your horizon may be 20 years from now. But when you are together, when you are worrying together about the same thing, you'll come up with solutions, and those solutions will make your heart feel better. And when your heart feels great, you'll include everybody. And please include everybody and be compassionate as you can. Share as much love, and don't worry about being perfect. You never have to be perfect. You've just got to be you.
I learned that a lot of people have different feelings about things, and it really helps to talk about how you feel and what you can do better in your school.
I learned that it's a really nice experience and environment where everyone can be themselves and not feel judged at all.
Yeah, you shouldn't think of what other people think of you. You should think of how you think of yourself.
We desperately need your leadership skills today. We can't wait for tomorrow. From a perspective of safety, from a perspective of justice, from a perspective of community, we can't wait until tomorrow for you to step into the light and shine your gifts as brightly as you can.
Connect with family and friends. I'm going to ask you every 1 to 3 days just to connect with somebody. And that to me is a generosity piece that you get to give to others.
Beyond the Horizon Summit, it's brought so many people, so many students from different schools that we would never actually talk to. And it's just a lot more connection that I've felt for the past few months. It's a lot of connecting with students on things that we are passionate about. We were talking about the school system, we were talking about racism and how COVID impacted us as well. And it's just seeing that everyone's going through the same thing and we're all passionate about the same thing. We're just bringing more connection, and it just drives me to do something more, right?
It's the start of a conversation. It starts with students and then it leads to teachers, educators talking with each other, but hearing from students and having student voice inspire that conversation, that there are some lessons learned that we want to see stick, lessons that can make for better learning, better teaching in schools, in LRSD, in a post-pandemic world. And so the only way we're going to make that happen is to actually talk and capture what it is we've learned about ourselves and our community.
So now that you were able to visualize a little better, so now that you were able to visualize a little better what the summit looked like, you're probably wondering why name the summit Beyond the Horizon. Well, the horizon kind of gives hope for the future and hopefully the end of this pandemic. But we can go beyond that to recuperate and rebuild, as well as use the lessons learned from the pandemic to build a better education system. The Beyond the Horizon Virtual Youth Summit logo reflects on the obstacles that were faced in the last year, thus demands and hope for a brighter future and light at the end of the tunnel with the sun shining. Moving forward, we can now share some of the information that was shared with us from students. The topics we're going to dive in first will be Indigenous education and land-based learning. The topics that seem to repeat themselves in the most various breakout rooms were going beyond treaty acknowledgements, identity and seeing oneself in their own education, and the importance of traditional land-based learning.
All right, so I'm going to dive in first to going beyond treaty acknowledgement. Each morning we do treaty acknowledgement in schools all over the school division. But why and what does that really mean? In brief, a treaty acknowledgement exists in efforts to acknowledge the ongoing conflicts of the past and present between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples. The idea is to attempt to reconcile and own up to the mistakes and consequences of colonization. But is that really the intent of those who recite it every morning, or is it just more so the idea of saying it for the sake of saying that we did it? Students from all over the division have expressed their interest in really understanding and going beyond treaty acknowledgement. For example, a lot of students were able to collectively name all 6 of the nations that called this land home for many years before them. However, the concern of many is that we are able to name so many names of explorers and settlers that came here, but how many Indigenous patriarchs are we able to name? The concern is additionally that we need to start younger, teaching students about the first peoples of this land and their traditional ways of life. Understanding is the most important thing when it comes to Indigenous education. One must dive in headfirst rather than barely touch the surface so that way students can properly take in the rich and deep history of Indigenous peoples. Secondly, identity and seeing oneself in their own education. Another thing that needs to be spotlighted is identity. Identity in one's education corresponds so much to one's success as a learner. The model of education we see today is a testament to this theory. Often in humanities, we talk about white males who have contributed to our history, which sort of checks off that box for students who relate to that identity. And therefore, since there's a model that they can relate to in their own education, these students are motivated to strive and succeed. However, based on the feedback from some students on May 5th, that same courtesy is not the same for everyone. For example, a theme that was brought up during our sessions was the idea of a herstory unit. This could be put in place to celebrate all the wonderful women who have contributed to our world and to learn about their success, to therefore inspire young female learners to not settle and to really reach for what they want. It is proven that when a student sees themselves in their own education, that their likelihood to succeed is exponentially higher. Moreover, this is the same for many other minorities such as immigrants, gender diverse folks, and Indigenous youth.
Lastly, something we're going to talk about is traditional land-based learning. Land-based learning uses an indigenized and environmentally focused approach to education by first recognizing the deep physical, mental, and spiritual connections to the land that's a part of Indigenous cultures. Fun fact, did you guys know that research shows that learning in an outdoor environment has mental health benefits? Improves the understanding of active learners and could help students develop environmental awareness and a connection to the land. Land-based learning really helps us connect to the land, which is so important for our physical, mental, social, and spiritual wellness. It provides opportunities for youth to develop their own connections with the land, which in turn nourishes them spiritually, physically, and mentally. Land-based learning empowers youth to share their knowledge about the land with others, which will increase awareness and understanding. Also, it really teaches youth the importance of respecting the land and protecting it with the same courtesy as their ancestors did before. Throughout all our various breakout rooms, many students felt that they would like to see traditional land-based learning incorporated more into their daily lives. It was so nice to hear that many youth felt that need, and it would help improve their overall well-being and their schooling experience. There are so many ways that traditional land-based learning could be incorporated into classrooms, no matter if we're in the middle of a pandemic. We would like to share some of those fun ways with you now. So we have 6 ways that we are going to share with you. Number 1, maybe you want to take your classroom outside, sit quietly and observe nature with the 5 senses, and have the students journal about how they feel. Number 2, gather and use natural resources for an art project. This could be done for English. Maybe you guys want to write a poem about something, or you could use the resources as math manipulatives, or maybe create music. Number 3, start a school garden and learn about how things grow. Maybe you take your class outside on a nature walk and identify edible plants and try those if they're edible. Tell a story or give a presentation in different locations and see how the setting changes a person's voice, tone, pace, and feeling. Number 5, do a fun science experiment outside or see who can build the tallest tower using natural resources, and this could be used as a team building activity. Number 6, do quiet time outside in hopes to connect students with the land. As you could probably see by now, there's so many different ways, and these are just some of the few. To conclude, Indigenous education and land-based learning are themes that students would like to see elaborated more in their education. It's great to see, and we realize it's a lot easier said than done. However, hopefully this feedback can inspire the subject matters that appeal to students' new and upcoming interests.
We also wanted to take this opportunity to put more emphasis on the topic of Indigenous education and land-based learning after the heartbreaking news we learned late last week about the 215 children who never made it home. In mourning and in respect, flags all over the country are being flown at half-mast for these children. This is a reminder that it is indicative to continue to learn so we can teach, because the trauma of our relatives continues to live and breathe through our youth. The cultural genocide of Indigenous people in this country is not an ugly chapter in Canada's history, because it's not over yet. If flags were at half-mast for every child who never made it home, our flags would not rise for 11 years. This section was not always in this keynote, but we felt it was necessary to pivot and to add it as a fresh reminder of the truth behind Canada's grueling history, and to be reminded that we are still on the path of learning. We have now put together some questions that invite you to reflect on the content of our keynote.
For the next half an hour or so, you will have the opportunity to discuss and reflect on what we shared with you today. You will be given prompted questions to help guide your discussions for the next half an hour.
So there are 3 questions that we invite you guys to reflect on. The first one is, what are some ways you are already incorporating land-based learning in your classrooms? The second is, in your opinion, why does treaty acknowledgement exist? Who is it for? And should Indigenous people be the ones reciting it? And then thirdly and lastly, as educators, what are some things you can do to ensure that minority students are being represented in their own education? We hope you enjoy your discussions, and we thank you for listening to our keynote today. Thank you. Merci, miigwech, merci. Have a wonderful day.
I'm going to share just a few words before we move on quickly, I promise. So I want to thank Mariah, Heaven, and Maren for an inspiring keynote, demonstrating to us all, again, that the children, the kids they talk to in our elementary schools, the youth in our high schools, are not, like some would think, continue to suggest, human beings in the making. Our children, our youth, are fully human, and they're not waiting for anything. And when we take the time to approach the world that way and listen to our youth, we can be so inspired to get it right all together. And so now you're going to have a conversation the way you've chosen to have a conversation in your school, led by your principal and vice principals. We've taken up a little more time, but that's okay. So your first morning conversation will be quick and tight, and that's all right, because you're going to have an opportunity to come back together and have conversations all through the day. And again, if there are things at the school level that are really top of mind, weighing heavily on your heart as an individual, you must let your colleagues know or your community know you need to talk about that thing that's weighing hard, that you've got to talk about that issue that's weighing on you, and find the time today to put it on the table. We're going to get back together at 10:15 to listen to another keynote and be inspired once again. Have a great conversation. See you back at 10:15. See you soon. By the way, there are 1,453 people on computers. They may be more than, there may be even more than one at a computer. That's pretty impressive. Have a great first conversation. See you back at 10:15.